Now, let's have a look at Meghan Markle being weird and inauthentic.
She's been mocked at Paris Fashion Week.
London, February 2026. A royal drama suddenly exploded over something that looked small but hit like a shockwave. A handbag. Not just any bag either, but the ultra-exclusive Balenciaga cash crocodile embossed clutch, custom made and privately commissioned for Zara Tindall, Princess Anne's daughter, for the Women in Equine Leadership Gala. This piece wasn't something you could just grab from a store shelf. It was crafted specially for her, stamped with her initials, and locked away in Balenciaga's London studio like a guarded treasure. This wasn't just about fashion. The bag was meant to complete Zara's powerful image. Polished, confident, and rising as a modern royal businesswoman with serious instincts. The clutch was the final detail, the finishing touch meant to seal the entire look. It had been reserved privately at Balenciaga London, custom ordered, monogrammed, and carefully prepared for pickup. Everything was set until the shocking twist. Just days before her team arrived to collect it. The bag was suddenly gone. The clutch vanished without a trace. Balenciaga released a stiff apology, blaming a vague logistical error, but the explanation sounded thin to many watching closely. There was no police report and no public scandal. Zara stayed calm in front of cameras, showing her usual composed face, but insiders claim that behind closed doors the mood was very different. She was furious, though she chose not to turn it into a public fight. That could have been the end of the story. Until Meghan Markle walked into a private Paris fashion meeting holding the exact missing bag. The timing raised eyebrows everywhere.
It's awkward. Let's have another look at it.
Meghan arrived dressed head to toe in black Balenciaga and stepped straight into a left bank PR office with Zara's unreleased clutch in her hand. Within 48 hours, internal photos from the meeting somehow leaked out. Quiet panic reportedly spread through parts of the fashion house. Soon after, Balenciaga paused early. Discussions about a possible ambassadorship with Meghan. The atmosphere quickly shifted. Zara said nothing publicly, but inside palace circles, the old tension reportedly sparked right back to life. Zara Tindall has always moved differently from the rest of the royal crowd.
How are you protecting children when you are promoting a brand that was accused of inappropriate behavior towards them?
Now, look, it's not being received well, certainly not as well as maybe she would have hoped, with some people labeling it a Zoolander war.
As the daughter of Olympic equestrian Princess Anne and the wife of former rugby star Mike Tindall, she chose not to hold a royal title. Instead, she built her reputation the traditional way. Now, steady work, discipline, and zero tabloid drama. Over the last 2 years, Zara has quietly become a symbol of modern British aristocracy. Stylish, but never flashy, loyal, but never loud, and calm even when pressure hits hard. That's why this situation cut deep. Instead of rushing online or making public complaints, she handled it quietly. Through her private secretary, she requested a firm but respectful internal investigation with one clear question. How did a reserved custom bag end up in the hands of someone with no active commercial deal with Balenciaga? Then the situation escalated fast. Within 24 hours, Meghan's team released a glossy teaser for a new fashion concept titled Love with Meghan Paris. The teaser included dramatic footage, mood boards, and close-ups of luxury accessories. And right there in the spotlight sat the same infamous handbag. Palace insiders reportedly described the moment as deliberate rather than accidental, a move that looked calculated instead of random. Sources claimed the Paris rollout was no coincidence.
She went round Paris in this car. She had her heels kicked up, and you can see that. A lot of people criticized her because she went near the tunnel where Diana was tragically killed. I'm not sure that was deliberate, but it's a lot of people criticized that.
According to whispers moving through fashion circles, the handbag moment looked like a bold flex, a signal that Meghan could still command attention behind the scenes. But the strategy also raised risks. Even after appearing around Paris Fashion Week wearing Balenciaga pieces, her standing with major fashion houses was already fragile. Reports suggested she had been invited by a creative director named Pierre Paoli, but insiders say she was never officially confirmed by the brand's core branding team. Her name reportedly never appeared on the ambassador shortlist. Internal messages inside the company allegedly raised concerns, especially considering previous wardrobe controversies and the collapse of the RQL project. The warning signs were piling up quickly. Zara's personal opinion about Meghan has never been spoken publicly. Still,
Look, this is the same woman that tells us she's Diana 2.0. Shouldn't she be aware of something like this?
people close to royal circles claim the distance between them has always been obvious. Some insiders say Zara viewed Meghan as theatrical, overly strategic, and exhausting to deal with. During major royal events, including the Queen's Platinum Jubilee and Prince Philip's Memorial, observers noticed Zara keeping clear space, avoiding eye contact, and skipping forced smiles. The handbag episode suddenly dragged all that quiet tension back into the spotlight. Princess Anne, famous for her steel-strong discipline and sharp judgment, has never publicly commented on Meghan either, yet her absence from Sussex-related gatherings since 2020 has been widely noticed. According to sources, she quietly encouraged Balenciaga to resolve the situation with dignity and professionalism. There were no threats and no loud reactions, just a calm reminder circulating in private circles. The monarchy has a long memory when it comes to respect. Zara grew up watching that approach. They don't argue through tabloids and they don't chase headlines. They wait, they stay silent, and they let time do the talking. Meanwhile, while Meghan's team framed the Paris moment as pure coincidence, Balenciaga insiders reportedly began reviewing concerns about brand alignment and past fashion controversies. What started as quiet whispers soon became formal questions. By the end of the week, the company's legal team had stepped in, negotiations were paused, and contracts were carefully reviewed. What began as the mystery of a missing handbag had suddenly grown into something much bigger,
I think you've got to get the princess pouch, don't you? You've got to work on that. Brilliant Ben Stiller movie and those glorious moments as they strut their stuff, all sorts of things. That people come with their own prejudices about the megalomania, as I call it each time.
Serious question about trust, reputation, and the delicate balance between royalty and the fashion world. Paris, February 15th, 26. A single email quietly landed in several senior inboxes at Balenciaga, but the effect was explosive. The message came from a senior legal advisor and carried a blunt title: contractual freeze. Later leaked to fashion insiders connected to Meghan Markle. The memo confirmed that every pending and informal agreement involving the Duchess had been immediately suspended pending review of product access and brand alignment. There was no press conference, no dramatic announcement, just a cold wall of silence that spoke louder than any statement. Meghan had once been rumored as the potential face of a luxury sustainability campaign for the brand. Now that possibility disappeared from the table without explanation. On paper, it looked like a simple legal step, but behind closed doors, insiders said the impact was heavy. One former brand manager later explained that the company originally planned to step away quietly. No noise, no headlines, just distance. But Meghan's reaction reportedly changed the atmosphere within 48 hours. Her team began flooding Instagram stories with cryptic hints about misogyny and institutional sabotage.
So this is the same town that her mother-in-law passed away in. Prince Harry says it was due to paparazzi, and Meghan's literally chasing these flashbulbs throughout the city. And then, she's 1 mile away in that video from where Princess Diana, had her last breath, lost her life.
Balenciaga was never named directly, but the tone was clear enough for anyone watching closely. One palace source described the messaging as victimhood over accountability. The posts sparked speculation across fashion blogs and royal circles alike. Meanwhile, Zara Tindall stayed completely steady. She appeared at the Cartier British Polo Awards in Gloucestershire wearing a sharp white tailored Victoria Beckham suit. Clean lines, confident posture, and absolutely no drama. The photos exploded across social media within hours. Commentators praised her elegance, restraint, and classic aristocratic calm. But this wasn't just about style. It looked strategic. Zara didn't chase headlines, and she didn't respond publicly. Yet as Meghan pushed harder for attention inside the fashion world, Zara simply stood still, and somehow the spotlight drifted right toward her. Just a week later, Harper's Bazaar UK confirmed that that Zara had been approached for a major cover feature. She politely declined, citing family priorities. No press campaign, no attention-grabbing announcement, just quiet control and a steady hand. Princess Anne also began moving carefully behind the scenes. According to senior staff, she ordered a discreet family-only review of commercial partnerships connected to royal circles. The timing raised eyebrows. It came just as concerns were circulating that Meghan had allegedly been referencing royal connections in brand-related conversations. Anne didn't lecture the media or send warnings through public channels. Instead, she reinforced internal policies, quietly redrawing the boundaries of royal influence. The move was subtle, but powerful. She also reactivated her trusted advisory circle on public image, an elite group that had remained dormant since the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. Their mission was clear: assess how figures like Zara Tindall, Lady Louise Windsor, and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, could represent a calm and reliable image of the crown. Low drama, high trust, steady leadership. While Meghan continued speaking loudly through media and social posts, Zara advanced quietly. At the same time, Princess Anne strengthened her inner network. Meanwhile, Meghan's Foundation reportedly began facing renewed scrutiny from regulators in the United States. Questions surfaced about gaps between reported spending and visible project results. No public accusations were made, but pressure was quietly building behind the scenes. Even some longtime supporters began stepping back. Tyler Perry, once considered one of Meghan's most dependable allies in the US, reportedly declined additional financial involvement. Her Paris press run also struggled to gain traction. Fashion insiders dismissed the rollout as off-brand. The intention seemed clear. Meghan wanted to appear as a bold innovator in the luxury space, but industry voices began describing the approach differently, without discipline. And that label stuck. Since stepping away from official royal duties in 2020, Meghan's momentum had slowed dramatically. Brands that once chased collaboration now responded cautiously. Luxury houses delayed meetings. Invitations became less frequent. Even Harriet, one of Meghan's aides, quietly returned to the UK for private discussions with palace legal advisors. Online, Meghan's messaging became increasingly scattered. One day empowerment slogans, the next day vague warnings about hidden truths. Former Sussex staff members admitted privately that her media strategy no longer landed with the same force it once had. Meanwhile, Zara Tindall, once described simply as a non-working royal, suddenly found herself at the center of a cultural shift without even trying. She stayed silent, she stayed steady, and that restraint carried real weight. Then came another quiet signal. Lady Louise Windsor, a longtime ally of Zara, was spotted leaving Zara's London flat the morning after the Paris handbag chaos. No photographers waiting, no entourage, no publicity, just presence. The message inside royal circles was clear. Zara was not standing alone. Soon afterward, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, hosted both Zara and Louise at a private equestrian gathering. No press release followed, and no photos appeared online. Insiders described the meeting as intentional, a stabilizing move designed to reinforce unity and calm. Meanwhile, Meghan, watching Zara receive more high-profile invitations, reportedly grew anxious. With options narrowing, she looked toward Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, two of the last remaining links to royal proximity. But by 2026, even those connections had cooled. Meghan allegedly invited the York sisters to a private Mayfair dinner under the banner of reconciliation, hoping to rebuild fragile ties before the door closed completely. But insiders say the real goal behind that Mayfair dinner was obvious. Meghan wasn't just trying to reconnect socially. According to royal sources, she wanted Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie to join her in a joint public statement defending her right to pursue luxury brand partnerships without palace restrictions. The plan didn't land the way she expected. Beatrice declined the invitation outright. Eugenie arrived late, stayed for less than an hour, and left quietly without making any comment. One former royal liaison later explained what Meghan had been attempting. She was baiting them, the source said, trying to pull the York sisters into her growing tension with Zara Tindall and Princess Anne. But Beatrice and Eugenie had seen this situation play out before. They understood how quickly things spiral when palace strategy is ignored. One insider put it bluntly, the move didn't look bold, it looked reckless. You can't fake proximity, the source said. Zara built trust slowly through consistency. Meghan keeps trying to skip the groundwork. That difference was becoming impossible to ignore inside royal circles. Princess Catherine remained publicly silent, but even her silence carried weight. At a London charity gala on February 12, 2026, she appeared wearing a beautifully restructured ivory gown originally worn by Queen Elizabeth II in 1969. The fashion choice instantly drew attention across British media. It wasn't just a dress, it was a visual signal, continuity, heritage, and alignment with the monarchy's long tradition. Zara and Catherine rarely appear together publicly, yet insiders say there is a quiet mutual respect between them. Both prefer discretion over noise and steady action over public spectacle. One palace source summarized the contrast sharply: "She's never needed a microphone." Meanwhile, Meghan's cryptic social media posts began losing momentum. One message read, "I was never invited to their table because they knew I'd build my own." The line gained attention briefly, but the wider public reaction quickly cooled. By mid-February, major UK outlets like Tatler and The Telegraph shifted their coverage. The tone moved from curiosity to neutral reporting, and in some cases even open criticism. The appetite for endless drama had faded. Zara, on the other hand, began receiving quiet admiration. At a Cardiff medical fundraiser, she helped raise more than £2 million for pediatric research, an achievement that spread through philanthropic circles quickly. Her name also started appearing internally as a potential ambassador for British Paralympic equestrian initiatives. Palace memos reportedly reflected a noticeable shift in perception. Zara Tindall, Sophie the Duchess of Edinburgh, and Lady Louise Windsor were described as stable and trusted figures. Meghan, by contrast, was increasingly viewed as a reputational risk. Princess Anne responded the only way she ever does, through action rather than spectacle. On February 7th, 2026, she convened a private meeting at Clarence House. Staff later referred to the gathering as the Restoration Briefing. The subject quietly guiding the discussion was Meghan Markle, though insiders say Anne never actually said her name during the meeting. According to one aide, that was intentional. "Naming chaos gives it power," the aide explained. Instead of reacting emotionally, Anne delivered what staff described as a masterclass in restraint. No dramatic speeches, no public warnings, and no interviews. Just calm discipline and a strategy built on patience. The message circulating within palace walls was simple: don't wrestle with noise, outlast it. Soon after, insiders say a long-standing palace guideline was formally reinforced: the non-engagement protocol. The crown does not argue on social media. It does not chase headlines. Its strength comes from steady consistency over time. But Meghan, reportedly feeling increasingly boxed out, pushed harder. Just 3 days after Zara was offered a limited co-hosting role at the Royal Ascot-style pavilion, a role that had once been loosely linked to Meghan, her team allegedly delivered a legal warning. According to reports, the document hinted that private archive communications could be released if negative suggestions about her continued. Palace staff privately labeled the Windsor Files bluff. The palace response? Absolute silence. No public reply, no private acknowledgement. Just the same steady calm that had defined their approach from the start. Outside palace gates, however, the shift in the fashion world was becoming clear. Meghan's brand image took another hit as several European luxury houses quietly stepped back from early conversations. Chanel instead highlighted Zara through an equestrian-inspired capsule concept. Dior and Burberry reportedly cooled earlier discussions involving Meghan after internal reviews raised concerns about brand alignment and stylist-related pressures. The doors weren't slamming shut dramatically, but they definitely weren't opening either. Meanwhile, Zara moved carefully, almost like a chess player thinking several moves ahead. She co-hosted charity polo matches, led equestrian initiatives connected to the Commonwealth Youth Games, and appeared in Harper's Bazaar, UK. There were no flashy promotional campaigns and no personal publicity pushes. No dramatic posts celebrating herself online. Just presence, professionalism, and calm. The contrast between the two approaches became impossible to miss. One French PR executive summed it up bluntly: "Discretion is our currency. Meghan doesn't represent that. Zara does." At one point, Meghan posted an Instagram reel showing an outfit strikingly similar to Zara's 2022 Royal Ascot look. Observers waited waited to see if Zara would respond. She didn't. No sarcasm, no criticism, not even a small comment, just silence. And that silence carried more weight than any online argument could have. Then came one rare moment when Zara actually spoke, and the line landed like ice across the media. When a reporter asked her about the ongoing attention, she calmly replied, "Some of us ride horses, some ride headlines. I prefer the former." Within 24 hours, that single sentence appeared in more than 300 media outlets worldwide. The remark was controlled, understated, and devastatingly effective. Even insiders say Princess Anne quietly gave a subtle nod of approval when she heard the quote. The message had been delivered perfectly. Calm, sharp, and impossible to ignore. Behind the scenes, pressure around the Archewell organization began stacking up fast. 2 directors quietly stepped down, and a major investor reportedly backed out of a proposed educational streaming partnership. At the same time, Netflix slowed conversations about new development projects. The momentum that once surrounded Meghan's venture suddenly started fading. Sensing the shift, Meghan tried a public pivot. She leaned heavily into wellness messaging and women's empowerment themes during several podcast interviews. Her tone suggested that certain royal figures felt uncomfortable around outspoken women. Many observers interpreted the remark as a subtle jab aimed at Zara Tindall. The comments carried a sharp edge, but the impact didn't land the way it once might have. The public response felt muted. Zara didn't respond at all. Instead, she quietly boarded a flight to Botswana to support a rural equine development initiative backed by the Commonwealth Secretariat. There were no photographers waiting, no staged photo opportunities, and no dramatic social media rollout. Just boots on the ground, horses, and real work. Palace insiders once again pointed to the contrast. One figure pushing loudly for relevance, the other earning respect without raising her voice. By late February, cracks were starting to show in Meghan's carefully managed public image. The familiar victim narrative no longer dominated headlines. Each attempt to reclaim the spotlight seemed to run into the same barrier. Calm, disciplined royal restraint. At the center of that quiet resistance stood Zara Tindall and Princess Anne. There were no arguments, no dramatic responses, and no public fights. Just silence, strategy, and steady control holding the line. On February 22nd, Meghan appeared on a US podcast titled Undaunted. The teaser carried her usual style, smooth delivery, soft metaphors, and carefully measured frustration. But according to insiders, the situation behind the scenes was far less calm. Sources claimed she rewrote her talking points 3 separate times and insisted on complete editorial control over the final cut. Producers later hinted that she seemed tense and under visible pressure before recording began. The calm voice listeners heard didn't fully match the stress building backstage. While that episode rolled out online, Zara quietly captured attention without even trying. A short clip surfaced, showing her helping a disabled young rider mount a pony during a charity event in Gloucestershire. The video exploded across social media almost instantly. There was no dramatic music, no carefully staged camera angles. Just patience, kindness, and a simple moment of support. People connected with it immediately. During a Commonwealth panel discussion soon after, Zara delivered a short remark that spread quickly online. She said, "We're not above criticism, but we are above collapse." The line caught fire across blogs, reposts, and even appeared printed on tote bags within days. There was no organized campaign behind it. The momentum happened. Naturally, commentators soon began describing Zara as the aristocratic face of quiet luxury. TikTok creators broke down her style piece by piece. Heirloom brooches, clean tailoring, equestrian jackets, and classic cuts that never begged for attention. The consensus was simple, timeless, not trendy. When a supporter asked online how she handled pressure without getting pulled into public drama, Zara's team posted one short response. "I grew up in a house where horses had more tantrums than humans." The line spread across social media and trended for days. Then came February 24th, and a moment few people outside royal circles initially knew about. Princess Anne reportedly sent Meghan a private letter delivered by courier to Montecito. There was no press announcement and no leak from the palace. Insiders later described the tone as firm but calm. The message reportedly included a striking line: "Royal standing is built in the quiet spaces between between headlines, endurance, not performance. Anne is said to have encouraged Meghan to focus on legacy rather than leverage. No public response ever followed. Around the same time, another issue surfaced in the United States. Tax authorities reportedly opened an inquiry connected to the Archewell Foundation. Allegations being examined included questionable travel expense classifications, donor transparency concerns, and unusually high public relations spending. Meghan's legal team released a broad statement addressing the situation, but behind the scenes, anxiety reportedly grew quickly. Former staff members were contacted and financial records requested as part of the review. Advisors in London quietly began preparing for reputational distance if needed. Through all of it, Zara stayed completely outside the storm. When a reporter eventually asked whether she planned to address the growing tension surrounding Meghan, her answer was brief and calm. If you know what you're doing, you don't have to explain what you didn't do. And with that single line, she walked away, leaving the noise behind her. The final chapter unfolded quietly but with sharp precision. Princess Anne coordinated closely with royal legal counsel to make sure the monarchy stayed protected from any possible legal fallout. The strategy was simple: containment without confrontation, no dramatic public responses, no heated exchanges, just careful insulation. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, paparazzi captured Meghan sitting alone at a small cafe. The photo that spread online showed her reflection caught in the window glass. Commentators quickly began building their own narratives. Some framed it as a moment of isolation. Others said it showed a public figure navigating a difficult chapter. Fair or not, one thing was clear: public perception had shifted. Back in the UK, Zara barely reacted. She had just returned from a 3-day veterinary research conference and was preparing for a Royal Military charity gala. When she stepped out of her car, she wore a navy cape coat fastened with a sapphire brooch. Classic, composed, and steady as ever. A reporter called out, asking if she had any words about Meghan. Zara paused for half a second, offered a faint, polite smile, and continued walking. No comment. The crowd applauded anyway. Then came the quiet twist no one saw coming. Under a light London drizzle, Zara Tindall walked through the wrought iron gates of a historic royal venue. Not as an Olympian, not simply as the granddaughter of Queen Elizabeth II, but as the newly appointed special envoy for heritage and sport. The role had been created to recognize her decades of involvement with Commonwealth sporting programs. There was no advance notice and no dramatic reveal. That was entirely Princess Anne's decision. According to palace staff, Anne specifically instructed that the moment be allowed to unfold naturally. No hype, she reportedly said. Zara arrived wearing a restored tie once belonging to Prince Philip, a subtle nod to continuity, duty, and family legacy. There were no speeches waiting for cameras and no theatrical ceremony, just quiet presence in the middle of a very noisy season. While one side of the story kept talking, the other kept building. Standing beside King Charles, Zara bowed her head slightly and accepted the appointment with calm confidence. No grand speech followed and no dramatic pause filled the room, just a steady acceptance of responsibility. Her new position placed her in charge of several royal patronages connected to Commonwealth youth sports programs. The focus would be female empowerment initiatives and equine therapy programs designed to help people recovering from trauma. It wasn't glamorous work, it was hands-on, long-term service, the kind that rarely trends online but leaves a lasting impact. At nearly the same moment across the Atlantic, Meghan Markle launched a global live stream titled The Cost of Silence. Broadcasting from a sleek Los Angeles loft, the production was polished from top to bottom. Carefully placed lighting, tailored black and white styling, and archival Windsor footage looping behind her created a dramatic visual backdrop. Nearly 500,000 viewers tuned in. She began calmly, speaking with reflection and measured emotion, but as the broadcast continued, her tone sharpened. "The monarchy taught me that dignity was about smiling in silence," she said. But silence is not peace, it's permission. She never mentioned specific names, yet the message was widely interpreted as criticism of royal traditions. She spoke about exclusion, about watching others gain influence through restraint, and about the weight of being unheard. Toward the end, she added one final line: "I will tell my daughter the truth. They could not bear to hear it from me." For a moment, the internet seemed to pause. Reactions split instantly. Some praised her boldness. Others said the public was beginning to feel exhaustion with the ongoing conflict. But within 24 hours, something unexpected shifted the conversation. The Royal Archives announced a new permanent exhibition inside Windsor Castle titled Service in Motion. Featured prominently were Princess Anne, Queen Elizabeth II, and Zara Tindall. There was no counterattack, no rebuttal, and no mention of any controversy. Just institutional storytelling presented quietly and confidently. Zara's section displayed handwritten letters from young girls she had mentored through sports charities. Video screens showed her visiting military rehabilitation hospitals and supporting injured veterans. Encased nearby were the riding boots she wore during her Olympic gold medal victory. No brand sponsorships, no influencer hashtags, just documented service. Near the exit of the exhibit, a single quote from Princess Anne stopped visitors in their tracks. Some talk of legacy, others write it out. Reign or shine. That line became one of the most shared quotes of the entire week. Meanwhile, photographers in Los Angeles captured Meghan leaving a legal office with documents tucked under her arm. Her expression looked serious. Insiders suggested she might be exploring possible civil defamation claims against unnamed advisors connected to royal circles. Nothing was filed publicly, but speculation spread quickly. Back in the UK, Zara and her husband Mike Tindall attended a veterans fundraiser at Sandringham. There was no grand entrance and no flashing spotlight. During the event, a young girl using a wheelchair approached Zara and asked softly, "What's your dream?" Zara knelt down to meet her at eye level. The girl answered, "To be brave like you." Zara smiled warmly and replied, "I think you already are." It was a small moment, but it carried real weight. There was no live stream, no dramatic soundtrack, no campaign attached to it. Just a genuine exchange between two people. And that contrast spoke louder than any speech. One woman continued fighting to control the narrative. The other stepped deeper into legacy without demanding attention. One pushed the spotlight toward herself. The other allowed history and service to pull her forward. And in that quiet space between headlines, the difference became impossible to ignore. If you watch this breakdown and have thoughts, drop them in the comments below. If this story made you see the situation differently, subscribe and stay locked in for more deep dives like this. Don't forget to like the video and share it with someone who should see it.